Hey, YouTube, I know you've missed me. So we're going to post a video a little bit later for those of you at home, the 3 of you in my class that are at home working on stuff, and on solar ovens. So, and you'll see the solar ovens that we had outside, and the students who are here they're going to post data on the increase of temperature in those solar ovens, the different types of solar ovens. You can look through them. We had 4 different ones, and hopefully you guys can get a good idea of what you want your solar oven to look like. 2 of them are very large, like large boxes with aluminum foil and fanned out. And then there are 2 of them that are more like shoebox shaped. And so you guys can kind of take into account how each one of them does. One of them has been significantly better than the other. And you can look at it and see if you can draw any conclusions, and we'll see what happens. I think what I'm going to do is in each class that does their solar oven project, whoever looks like they have one of the best ones, I'll let y'all bring them in, and we'll have a cook-off for each class, and whoever does the best gets extra credit. That sound good?
Yes.
Okay, so
Can that be the thing?
maybe we can cook cookies. Something like that.
You just need to find a way. You just need to do some research and find a way to build a structure to where it can actually bake the cookie.
Well, yeah, that's called an oven. We're trying to do it with solar energy.
Yeah.
All right, so using solar energy in that method to cook something would be what type of solar? What do we call that? It's not active solar, it's passive solar. So passive solar energy. So you guys at home today, and I don't know if I mentioned this to people in class, you at home are supposed to be working on an energy audit at your house where you go around and you look for ways to improve energy efficiency in your home. Now, tomorrow, Luke, we are going to be going around the school for about half the period once we review a little bit for your test, and we are going to do the same thing here at school. So hopefully we'll be able to post some different ideas of different ways to improve our energy usage here at home and at school. I know it's hard to believe you're all young and beautiful and fun and doing whatever it is you do in your spare time. Pick your nose, I don't know. Play on TikTok. And so, but in about 10 years, most of you will probably have a family or at least be married and probably own a home. What are y'all, 17, 18? Yeah. Some of y'all may be alone. It's okay. It takes a little bit longer for some of us than others, but these are things that you need to consider. And I'm sure probably by the time all of you are as old as I am, probably half of you will have built a home. That's, a lot of people build homes. They want certain characteristics and certain things, and they want something new. And so we see it around here quite a bit, a lot of new homes. So these are things that I want you to consider and think about. We are on the last section of notes M. It is on energy conservation. And so we're on number 50. Let's go to 59. I'm going to skip through a few and then we'll come back to those 54 through 58. Turn to 321 in your book. Now, what are the 3 main consumers of energy in the U.S., Jeremiah? Okay, agriculture does consume a lot of energy. I'm not going to break it up that way. Here's how I'm going to do it. We're going to do transportation. Okay, so there's a lot of transportation in agriculture. There's industry, and then the other main one is going to be residential, okay, which is like housing. So people use a lot of energy in transporting stuff or in driving places. They use lots of energy at home for heating their homes and cooling their homes. And there's a ton of energy used in, not a little ton, but a lot of energy used in industrial sector, which means producing stuff, okay? So you don't have much control over the industrial part, DeQuinte, but we do, and you will have more control over your residential and transportation parts, right? So one day you will be out on your own. You will decide what kind of car you want to buy, what type of mileage it is, how far you want to live from your place of work or where your kids go to school. So those are things that are going to affect your energy consumption in transportation. At home, what's going to affect your energy consumption? How much you heat and cool, where your thermostat is, where you live, yeah, but you're not going to be able to control that so much. So it's going to be how much you turn the thermostat up or down. What else?
Appliances.
How much you turn the lights on and off, and anything else in your house, really. Do what? TV, electronics, all that stuff. Now, one thing we failed to mention that I read about the other day and was thinking about is phantom energy. Have y'all heard this? Maybe they call it vampire energy. I can't remember. Something like that. Where, like, if you're not using your TV or your phone or your computer or something like that, but it's still plugged up, it's still pulling energy in a lot of cases. So a lot of times, like, you'll see those power strips. So if you don't want it pulling energy, then what should you do? Yeah, turn it off. Now, I don't know how significant that is. I'm sure it depends on like the computer or gaming system or something you have set up. But if it's something like that you can turn off, like I used to always do that for our TVs and electronics when we went on vacations because one, I didn't want something to short out or have like a lightning strike and something blow up and burn down the house. But it does conserve energy. Most of your energy usage at home though is going to be from what? We'll just say appliances. So oven, fridge, microwave, all that stuff. They're pulling a ton of power. Your what? And then probably the other main one is heating and cooling. I'll throw dryer in with appliances. So all of those big appliances and your heating and cooling are probably using 70, 80% of your electricity. For the most part now, if you've replaced your home with LED lights, that's probably a pretty small segment. And I'm trying to think what else. Like TV and computer and stuff like that is probably relatively small compared to your appliances and heating and cooling. Heating and cooling, I would say, is the big one. That's why in good old America, we use lots of energy because like places, most other countries do not use what? Air conditioning. Air conditioning uses lots of energy throughout the summer. I would like for y'all to find out at home if you haven't already. I don't know if I told you to do this, but if you can find out what your kilowatt hour usage is for the last month, to see just kind of what you don't have to ask your parents how much it cost, but if they'll let you look at the last power bill or tell you how many kilowatt hours did you use at your home in the last month. And so we can kind of compare those since you guys are familiar with what kilowatt hours are.
Is like heating up water for like showers and stuff use a lot of energy?
So that's actually a good question, Sophie. So let's say when you're heating up water for a shower, so some of y'all take some pretty long showers if I were to guess, especially like ladies if you're washing your hair on a regular basis, or if you like to take a bath, that typically uses a lot more water than a shower. So there's two ways of heating up water for a shower. What are they? So you can have so there's basically two types of hot water heaters, electric and gas. And then there's two types of gas hot water heaters. So like I have an electric hot water heater at home because we don't have gas running in my house. It's an older home and we decided not to do that because it's expensive. And so yes, there's a lot of energy to heat up that water. Like on a stove, like it requires a lot of energy input to get water to a boil. And when you start talking about most hot water tanks are 40 or 50 gallons. So that's a lot of energy that has to go into heating that up. Gas does it much more efficiently and quicker if you have that. But that's one thing that you actually wouldn't see just by looking at your power bill is if you're using gas for your hot water heater and your heat pump, then that's going to be a total separate energy thing to your electric bill. That's a good question. So, and there's two types of hot water heaters. And we didn't really talk about these. Is anybody familiar with the two types? One, you've got a giant tank. You know what I'm talking about? I've seen it's probably like 5 feet high, and it's about this big, it's about 50 gallons.
I remember I had asked you, like, how does it work? Like, how does it
Yeah, it heats it up from the bottom, and then it keeps it, so once you run out of so much of that hot water, it has to turn back on. At my old house over here across the street in Remington, we had to replace the hot water heater, and sometimes it's okay, I don't live there anymore, Rachel. So sometimes the pilot light would go out, which is what, you have to have a little light on all the time, and then when you have to heat it up, it turns a bunch of gas on and heats it up. And so that pilot light, when it would go out, all the water would be cold. Like sometimes we went on vacation, the pilot light would go out. And you have to get back in there and reignite it and stuff. So it's constantly using a little bit of gas just to keep that pilot light going. But anyway, the other type of hot water heater is what?
Electric?
No, I mean besides the other type of gas. What?
They have like the elements in them.
Well, all the gas ones have elements, but there's one where you have a tank, and then the other one is called a tankless hot water heater. And so I saw some, what's his name, Drawhorn, Miss Drawhorn's husband was putting one in their home the other day. I'm friends with him on the Facebook, and he installed one of those tankless hot water heaters. And basically what it is you have a unit mounted on the wall. They're pretty expensive, but you don't have any kind of tank that goes along with it. So basically, you turn on your hot water in the shower, and as water runs through there, it has the heating elements that heat up the water. And so it just heats it up on demand. And so you're not constantly keeping a 50-gallon tank of water full, even when you're not there.
And so it never really would like run out of hot water either.
Yeah, you never run out of hot water because it's going to constantly heat it up. Yeah, so that's the benefit. The drawback is it's pretty expensive on the front end. But that's about it. So you see a lot of people if they have gas in their home, they're going to tankless water heaters just because of that benefit of that constant supply of hot water. Okay. All right. So, and I know these are all things that maybe you haven't considered or thought about, but like I said, in the very near future, you will have homes. You will have to inspect them. You'll have to see, you may want to buy a home, and these are things that you have to consider and think about. Yes, ma'am.
In my house in Georgia, we have this really big like industrial oven, and it's really old. It was there when we first bought the house. And in order to use the stove, the oven part doesn't work. It's a gas oven. In order to use the stove, you have to flip the thing in the back, and you have to light it.
Like to turn the gas on?
Yeah, you have to turn the gas on, and then you have to turn it on the thing, and then you have to light it. And there have been nights where we have forgotten to turn the thing off, and you wake up and the whole kitchen just smells like gas.
Smells like gas?
It's all, yeah, it's all.
Yeah, I'm a paranoid person, and I'm a worrier. So like I'm one of those people, I'm a little OCD. I like check something about 10 times to make sure it's off or whatever. The same thing, like I could not handle having a gas oven because that would be so paranoid to leave the gas on and then it'd explode in the middle of the night. Yeah, probably what you had is a little bit of a leak, maybe since it was an older one. And then, because most of them, they have a dial and you turn it on and the gas comes on, you turn it off and it's off. But if you were having to turn off that extra dial, maybe that was a way of preventing it from leaking. Yeah, you got to be careful with and then you've also got to make sure they're vented properly to make sure that there's no carbon monoxide buildup. So that's something else you have to consider. But it's much cleaner and more efficient, and you get a lot more heat than you do with electric. It was funny.
I can't stand the electric stuff.
Like electric stove, since you do the cooking.
Yeah.
You mean plug that channel again?
So
Hey, y'all be nice when you're commenting on other people's channels. Where's that thing? I don't know where it is. You guys be kind out there. Don't bully on social media. Just share the love. Good vibes. Hold on, Layla's holding up something. Yeah. Okay, be kind. Be the iron kind. Where was I going with that? Oh, gas. So we have an electric stove at my house, and my wife does not like it, but or she didn't like putting it in. But Mr. Mims over here, I was telling him about how to cook some deer meat that I gave him for his birthday the other day. And he's like, well, how do you cook it? And I was like, well, just cook it in a cast iron pan. Just put a bunch of olive oil and then put your meat in there and cook it on the stove. And he's like, well, I thought cast iron pans like cracked open on electric stoves. And I was like, who told you this? Like, what kind of propaganda have you been listening to? So, no, that's not the case. But yes, gas ones do heat up much more quickly and efficiently than electric ones do. But all of us poor folks with electric stoves, we're still getting by out there. All right, let's see here. Improving economy for fuel vehicles. You guys need to write down CAFE. What does that spell? All right, CAFE is an act that was passed by Congress back in the, I want to say late 70s, early 80s. And I can't remember what it stands for, but it's something fuel efficiency. And so when you go to buy a car, what do you see? What do they always have on the sticker of the window? Gas mileage, right? So you're worried about the other stuff, Jason. So they've got the highway and the city mileage and then whatever the average is.
What are we writing this next to?
Out beside improving fuel economy for vehicles. So this law was put into place so the consumers would be aware of what the mileage is for the vehicles that they're driving, okay? And it's still used today. Now, some of these laws were relaxed in the early 2000s during the Bush administration. We've talked about some of their energy policies. And you had this big influx of like larger SUVs and bigger trucks at that point. I remember growing up back in the 80s and 90s where like most people that had a truck, it was a single cab truck or it was like the small little extended cab that you couldn't hardly fit in and you had to climb in through the front. And then almost everyone that had a family vehicle, the family vehicle was a car, a passenger car. Some people had like small minivans because they had just started making those in like probably the early 90s where a lot of people, where you started to see them showing up. But most people drove cars. There wasn't like, SUVs were not a thing back then. And so this is a relatively recent development where you have these large gas guzzlers that almost everyone drives, okay? All right, on 321 in your book here, what is the most fuel efficient means of transport from place to place?
Public transportation.
Public transportation is correct, but be more specific. Train and motorcycle, train and motorcycle. Who uses trains?
People in big cities.
Europeans, good. So, for those of you at home, the three of y'all watching this and actually care, there we go. So, I'll tell you my Euro story. If you go to Europe, has anybody been to Europe in here? Okay, y'all need to get, you been?
Yeah, well, I was like 30.
Okay, you don't remember that. If and when you get to go to Europe one day, and all my fans out in Europe, what's up? The thing to do to get around there is not to have a car. I mean, like nobody has a car hardly, and you couldn't find anywhere to park one if you needed to, unless you're really out in the country somewhere. So usually what happens is you would buy a plane ticket to somewhere. We always look for like the cheapest place. So me and another teacher went in 05, I think, the summer of 05, on like a backpacking trip through Europe. So we got the cheapest flight we could into Austria. I think we were in Salzburg, Austria. We bought a rail pass. And so basically you buy like a train pass and it's good pretty much all over Europe. And so anytime you want to jump on the train and go to like another country, you can. And you don't have, so like you pay $400 or $500 up front for the rail pass. And then like we went from Austria to Hungary, to the Czech Republic, to Germany, to Italy, to France, to Spain. And you could get on and off the train as many times as you wanted and go anywhere in the EU that you wanted to. So it's an easy way to get around. A lot of people do it. It's very fuel efficient. You don't see many people driving cars just because their mass transit is so efficient. When you could put like 50 people on a bus compared to 50 people driving individual cars, you can see that's much more energy efficient and better for smog and pollution that's released in the environment. And if people are driving around, like a lot of times in small cities, well, not small cities, big cities in Europe, you'll see a lot of people that are driving what? Motorcycles or mopeds. You see a ton of these. So there's like small little motorcycles or mopeds a lot of times. And so they're easy to they're easy to park out of the way. They don't cost a lot. They don't use a lot of fuel. Even over here, if you buy a motorcycle, like my wife's into motorcycles, and so she used to have a little Honda Rebel, and that joker would get like 60 or 70 miles to the gallon. So you can drive a long ways and hardly use any fuel. And I'm not a big motorcycle fan around here, to be honest, because I think they're a death trap because of the way people drive around here. But in terms of just fuel efficiency and fun to drive, they are fun to drive. I used to drive it back and forth to school. But I would always wait till all the students got out of the parking lot because I didn't trust me out. But anyway, train, passenger car, you see even flight is all better than a single person driving in their own vehicle. Bus is even better as well. Well, you see a lot of people travel by bus in different locations. Poorer countries, mass transit is usually bus. And so like they'll have buses that runs, and we even like over, Layla, you're probably familiar with this in Atlanta, they have MARTA, where you have a bus system, you also have a train which runs, and then the train just runs all over town. So, and if you can't get somewhere by the train, then you get on one of the buses. So that's a way for people to get around, even if they aren't able to afford a car. I don't know, maybe if they had too many DUIs or whatever, they can still go and get around places. Or you can always walk, Caleb. Yes.
Atlanta also's got like all those bikes, and they have the scooters, the birds.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with this, the electric scooters, they're like the little, like the little razor, like they're big razor scooters,
They have
basically
those in Memphis.
with electric motor. They've got those.
In
And I
DC,
think it was really just like for fun. You couldn't like get around anywhere with them.
I don't know, the ones in Atlanta, you can go from block to block. You basically just like pay for it and then you drive it and then just drop it off, right?
Yeah.
Because I would see them just like laid on the side of the road
Yeah.
places, and I was like, I hope somebody's coming around to pick this up. Now, it's a little bit different overseas in big cities because a lot of these cities will have places where you can rent bikes. So they would have a station, like let's say you got in the train station in like Denmark, and they're famous for these because they got a lot of flat land. It's easy to bike around. It's not that hot. And so, I mean, here it'd be kind of hard because if somebody's biking in the summertime, they'd probably pass out and die of heat exhaustion. So, but like in Copenhagen, like you go to the train station, you get off, you can rent a bike at this little station, you put like your credit card in, you ride it around town, you put it back in the station, and they charge you just a little bit of money. And so it's just an easy, efficient way of getting around. They do this throughout Asia and a lot of countries throughout the world where you can rent little bikes like that and just to get around places in town. So these are all ways that are better of reducing energy usage, okay? All right, and then let's see, hybrid vehicles. Anybody know anybody with a hybrid vehicle?
yes.
Yeah, we got one in our seventh period, right? So hybrid, the benefit is
It's gas
That's
mileage.
gas.
you can still use gas. You don't have to charge it up, but you still get really good mileage. So the drawback of electric, let's say you're taking a Tesla on a road trip, Jason. Well, if you go out west somewhere, and you're taking a long road trip, you would have to have somewhere you could charge that up. And there's not many motels with just a charger hooked up. You would have to find a charging station. But if you had like a hybrid vehicle, you could still put gas in it, use the electric as you're stopping and slowing, and still there's that benefit, but you can still keep going as far as you want to with a hybrid. So that is the big benefit, and that's really one of the big drawbacks of electric is there's not many gas stations with like an electric pump out the side where you can fast charge your vehicle.
I think the only place I've seen like an electric charging station is at Hotel Indigo down.
They got one?
Yeah, because I remember I was delivering at Jimmy John's one time, and I had saw it, and I was like, I did not know.
Did they have to pay for it?
I don't know.
Do they have like
I
a
didn't see anybody using it, and I didn't see it. It was like I literally took a parking spot right there because I was gonna be there for like 2 minutes.
When I was in Birmingham, they had like a bunch of Tesla ones. But,
Well,
like,
see,
nothing else.
I would think that'd be a problem if like you were a student coming to the university. We got a lot of students here, and you're driving a Tesla. You couldn't live on campus, or you couldn't live in an apartment. You would have to have a home where you could plug it up, and you've got to have there's a special plug for it. So you'd have to get something rewired in that home. So that would be one of those drawbacks we were talking about. All right, real quick here, and then we'll go back outside and check our solar ovens. Battery electric vehicles do have their benefits. If you have a home, you can charge it. You can drive back and forth to work a relatively short distance. Battery vehicles, I think, are great, especially if you have like solar panels, like a lot of people do in Southern California, where you can charge it up using clean energy. I know there's some drawbacks from the battery usage, but I think that's probably offset by, not burning the fossil fuels that we have. And then we talked a little bit about public transport. All right, we'll finish the last few up tomorrow. Remember, you got a test on Tuesday on Unit 6. You need to complete the 2 progress checks by Monday night at 11:45. They're already open. They're only about 20 questions each. As long as you get half of them, you'll get full credit, okay? So I would go through and take them like you're taking a test, though, because that's a good practice test for you guys to have, or a good practice quiz for your test, okay? You guys be good.